get started. We do have one person just came in the parking lot, be here with us, but can I get confirmation for a quorum? All right, well, we'll get started. Today is July 7th, 2025, 5 p.m. We are in the VPUB Annex Building, and we're going to be starting our meeting today. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll go ahead and have a moment of silence, especially with a lot of the events that we've had here in the city last week, and especially this last week in Texas. Please have a moment of silence. Thank you. Also, just today, we'd like to welcome our new member, Martin Sarkis, now officially on the board. And again, I know we've welcomed you several times already, but officially now on the board. We're excited to have you and work with you.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, we'll go get started with item D, workshop, public hearing.
Good afternoon, board members. We have as item number 1, we do have a workshop, and it's on the Integrated Resource Plan, workshop number 4. Some of you have already been involved in the various different planning stages. And with that, we have Ms. Lina Alvarez, who will kick off the meeting. Online, we have Mr. Glenn Justice and Mr. Rob Patrolak, consultants that have been assisting us with the Integrated Resource Plan. Lina?
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Barry.
Good afternoon. My name is Lina Chavez, and I am Bronzeville Public Utilities Board Energy Risk Manager. Today, I will be presenting the Integrated Resource Plan results. With me this afternoon, as Ms. Marilyn mentioned, we have Rob Patrolak and Glenn Justice with Experience on Demand. Rob Patrolak with Patrolak Advisors. In addition with us, we do have a very special group as well. PubCap committee is here being represented by Mr. Jose Medrano. And there's a few other members on their way, Daniela Sosa and Carmen Nordyke. After we discuss the results, we want to work with the board to obtain your preferred portfolio option. And we'll go through the different slides to make sure you get more details on that. Okay, in today's agenda, we will be going over the Integrated Resource Plan process, discuss the overview of the portfolios, and discuss PubCap's recommendation. And after this meeting, we will be working with the consultants to obtain a final Integrated Resource Plan report that will be presented to the board during the August meeting. VPUB board meeting, it will be brought to the VPUB board meeting for approval and adoption. So what is an IRP? And I'm going to provide some background because I know we do have a new board member. The Integrated Resource Plan is a comprehensive long-term planning analysis developed to identify strategies to effectively balance energy supply and demand. It not only projects future growth, but it also assesses the current energy portfolio or generation, that is, to determine the needs over the next 30 years. As part of the process, the IRP evaluates a range of generation options and ranks them based on reliability, affordability, and sustainability. To provide a little more history, the Board of Directors requested that we have our Bronzeville community stakeholders, invite them to participate in the IRP process to ensure that customers are represented. A series of workshops were then organized to engage the stakeholders and incorporate their feedback. At any point, if you guys have any questions or comments or would like to add anything to this workshop, it's intended to be interactive, so please feel free to do so.
Maybe I missed it, but did you say that this happens every 3 or 5 years?
I did not say it, but you're right. Yeah, we do integrated resource plans every 3 to 5 years, depending on the need as well. If we have to look at retiring some of the generation, integrated resource plans are done usually to make sure that the changes that are going to take place make sense on the economics for the utility.
Yeah, so what we're reviewing, our decision, obviously will evolve over time. Right now, we're just looking to make the best decision possible based on all the data that we have.
That is correct, yes. And it's a whole process. We're not going to be making a final decision in this meeting. It's more of an analysis, a report of an analysis, which you're going to get as an end product. And there's a lot more to actually bring some generation into BPUB that has to take place. We will have to do an RFP, consider the economics of it in a different analysis, and then the board will have to make a decision then. Right now, it's more, like you said, it's just based on the options, what is the best choice? Correct. Thank you. Okay, so who was involved? The key stakeholders for the IRP were the current BPUB customers. We had economic development groups. We had PubCap members who were very actively involved. And we had the board of directors as well. Thank you so much for participating in this as well. And then the city commission and some BPUB employees. We wanted to make sure that all of the community concerns, ideas, and goals were represented and contributed to the analysis to align with Bronzeville priorities. So how did we do this? We developed a set of workshops to proactively obtain input from all of the stakeholders. Today, we're here to complete the last workshop prior to providing you the final integrated resource plan report. And the next step is going to be to issue that report during the August meeting, as mentioned earlier. The next slide. Okay, so we went through this public process to identify and rank the most important factors for how we evaluate the results. This slide provides examples of the criteria we discuss, rank, and then use to evaluate the results. We consider items such as environmental concerns, reliability, regulatory risk, customer impact, cost, and job creation, to name a few. This is a list of some of the items that came out of those discussions. BPUB's existing resources. I think I want to make a pause real quick to discuss a little bit of the responsibilities of ERCOT. ERCOT is responsible for the reliability of the grid, and BPUB is responsible for the economics of its power supply, as well as the rates to the customer. There's a lot of other items that are considered as well, such as, is the generation considered to be in the money, meaning it's cost effective to run it? Is there transmission constraints or congestion as well? So all that takes, I guess, part on the final rate for the customers. But overall, having generation is a good thing to have. Owning generation or having contracts allows BPUB to stabilize the fuel and purchase energy costs to customers. If BPUB did not own any generation, the customer will be exposed to high levels of market price volatility. In other words, we buy off of the ERCOT market, but we also sell our generation into the ERCOT market. So the revenue we receive from our generation, from our running generation, actually offsets the cost we pay for our load. That's the reason why it's important to have generation as part of our portfolio. And we actually own 377 megawatts of rated capacity or have a contract. Any questions or comments?
Now, I would like to clarify, we do have a contract for some of this generation. We don't actually own the physical facilities, and that's just a very important thing to clarify.
Yes. Yeah, we do. We have two contracts, one of them with AEP, which is the portion of the 19 megawatts, and then we also have Sendero Wind generation. That's actually, it's a wind turbines. That's 78 megawatts on rated capacity, and the Desert Sky as well. So yeah, and then as well as for Hidalgo, we own a portion of the plant. Any more questions, comments? No? Thank you. Okay. The next slide is our comparisons. So Bronzeville PUB evaluated energy resources options for its integrated resource plan using advanced modeling tools that simulate BPUB system and estimate production cost across a range of different scenarios. The consultant used a modeling software called Encompass. This is an industry-leading platform that provides a balanced approach aligning customer needs, regulatory requirements, and long-term sustainability. The IRP is going to help us make sure that BPUB selects the most cost-effective, reliable, and environmentally responsible energy portfolio to meet future demand. These three portfolio options that are shown here were developed using a combination of the numeric model results and the criteria evaluation rating determined by the stakeholders. Portfolio option 1 provides 40% of gas fire and 60% of renewables. Portfolio option 2 provides 45% of gas fire and 55% of renewables. And then number 3 provides 35% of gas fire and 65% of renewables. I just wanted to share that detail with you. There was a lot of interest from different members to try to keep our portfolio as environmentally friendly as we could. And we did the best considering the cost and all the other factors as well. Okay. So this next slide provides the total cost for the 30 years and the criteria evaluation ratings. The best outcome, of course, will be to have the least cost and the highest rating. At this time, I would like to actually open it for any questions. And meanwhile, we can get PubCap to come and be part of it so that they can share with the board the recommendation. You guys have any questions first and foremost at this point? So PubCap is
Yes,
here.
yeah, I guess I'll make one quick question. So
Sure.
when you're talking about percent, that's just like capacity, right? So
Yeah.
if it's 60% renewable, that means if there's 377 megawatts, that 60% of that would
Yes,
come from renewable energy,
yes.
which includes solar and wind, or just wind?
It's solar and wind. It's a combination.
Okay.
And more detail as to the specifics as to exactly what's covered there will be provided in the report, and you'll have an opportunity to take a look at the exacts and figure out if it's something that that the board feels comfortable with. You'll have an opportunity to approve the report or suggest changes as well. But yeah, it's renewables. Mhm.
Okay,
And
so
it's
for
great.
portfolio 3, it's 65%.
That is correct, yeah. But it's also, if you notice on this particular slide, it's also the most expensive because of the renewables aspect of it. We were able to, the model actually calculated portfolio number one, the least expensive, and it still is in the midpoint in terms of renewables. Any more questions?
Um, No,
Thank you. So we do have Mr. Jose Medrano and Daniela Sosa here representing PubCab. You all would like to say a few words as to your recommendation?
Good evening, Board. My name is Joe Medrano, and I'm a member of the PubCap. Just wanted to give our part and our perspective of the process. It was very involved. The workshops were informative. There was a lot of participation. And on behalf of the PubCap committee and myself, of course, I feel that as community advocates, we learned a lot. We participated and we contributed, which is essential to being a PubCap member. And we lean in the direction of option 3, which was in the direction of the renewables, because we feel that option would be best and most beneficial to BPUB, the customers, and our future.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Daniela Sosa. I'm also a member of the PubCap board. I was one of the members that also voted for Portfolio 3. While the choice may come at a higher upfront cost, it represents a critical investment for Brownsville's future. Diversifying and energy resources is always a great thing. It avoids expenses down the road, and transitioning to renewables is maybe a choice that if we choose another option, we would just delay than choosing a more renewable option. So I think it would be great to position our community for long-term sustainability and resilience.
I'm sorry, I need to learn to read writing a little bit better. The option that we selected was option 1. I apologize for that, for the same reason, obviously, because that's in the best interest of BPUB and the customers of Brownsville. Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, and I'm really happy to see PubCat members here contributing to the process. I know when I was there for the full 4 years, it was a very good experience, and we always felt, well, one day we can contribute to the bigger board. So I'm glad that that's happening now, that conversation's happening. So just to make sure I understood, Portfolio 1 is a recommendation from PubCap. We'll definitely take that into consideration.
Wait, I think they said 3.
Incorrectly, he said 3, and then the last statement, when he came back up, he said that it was actually Portfolio 1.
Okay.
That's correct.
Sorry, I was getting to that.
Okay, so
But yeah, we'll take that into consideration and as we make the final decision.
Sounds good. Thank you. In terms of the next steps, then the board will take the desired action during open session. And then the BPUB board will make a decision to accept the BPUB IRP report during the next meeting. We appreciate all of the stakeholders' input and guidance throughout the process and are looking forward to finalizing the integrated resource plan. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Yep, and we do have an action later
Yeah.
tonight.
it's Item number 7, I believe.
Sure. Is there any additional information that we're going to be reviewing? Okay. So I do have a quick question.
Sure.
On the comparisons, I mean, it's pretty visual here, but from the cost perspective, it's Portfolio 1 is the least expensive,
That is correct. Yes.
the total cost.
Mhm. Yes.
And then from I guess that was the evaluation. So that's the raw score and then the weighted average.
That is correct.
Yeah. So that's why it was Portfolio 1, because it has the highest rated average.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when we had Winter Storm Uri a few years ago, there was an issue with some of the renewable power generation. Is that right?
Yes,
What was it? The windmill froze? Is
yes,
that-
some of the blades. In some
Um,
areas.
So I'm wondering, in a scenario like that, when having the generation is extremely important, because otherwise, to keep us from having to pay a ton of money, because we're kind of having to buy power, right? And to offset that cost when, that cost per megawatt, goes through the roof. How would these portfolios have us fare in those situations?
So
Like with-
I'm just going to jump in because this is a common misconception. The natural gas lines fail for a lot of producers. They froze. And so Winter Storm Uri, yes, there were some renewables that came offline, but there was a lot of natural gas that came offline as well. And I don't know what the final analysis is. I know that the big hit was the natural gas that we struggled for. But, reliability, I believe, was one of the major things that we discussed. And I'm sure Glenn probably has the answer for that. I wanted to push back against the narrative because it was something that came up in the aftermath of Winter Storm Uri that turned out to be untrue.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is correct, yeah. So we saw prices, usually they range between $2 to $7 per MMBTU in terms of gas. We saw prices on the 500 per MMBTU during those times. So yes, there was a big issue when you had to deal with gas more than anything during that time. Glenn, would you like to add anything else to our discussion?
Sure, Lena, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, I think these are great, great comments and a great form of discussion. I think anytime we go through an integrated resource plan of this type and a little bit later on when we make final resource decisions, I think those are going to be forms of some additional analysis and due diligence that might be important to undertake, because it's not just Winter Storm Uri. There are other forms of scenarios that could occur, and there's just too many possibilities to put that all at the same time into the IRP process. But it is appropriate as we move to a final decision to think about some of those scenarios. Now, it is absolutely true that there was quite a bit of gas as well as some renewable energy that was forced offline during the storm. But it's, ERCOT has made many changes in terms of operating protocols. Of course, the state of Texas has enacted legislation and regulations to ensure resource availability, especially resources that have a health and safety consequence. The point that Lena made earlier is also important to mention. In other words, ERCOT is responsible for reliability of the grid. And, reliability is effectively socialized across the system. So just because a given utility might have sufficient resources that they had previously purchased, if other areas of ERCOT have resource shortages that could lead to an entire grid collapse, ERCOT's going to rotate brownouts, if you will, kind of regardless of how many resources you've actually procured for your own utility, which is kind of unique. It's unique compared to other reliability jurisdictions in the United States. And so it's not as simple as saying how much of a given resource type do we have. You really have to think about the broader grid and kind of how the regulations and the ERCOT protocols affect reliability for any given scenario. And so that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I think it's going to be important in the final due diligence steps before any final resource decisions are made later on to think about these types of scenarios.
That's a very good question. But I did wanted to add a little more. I think that ERCOT is taking quite a lot of steps to make the whole system more reliable. They have capped what used to be the highest cost from 9,000, now it's 5,000. The state of Texas is making sure that the gas is accessible and that it's going to be set up at a fair price. There's a lot of good movement. We see it even on our regular monthly meetings, how ERCOT is doing much better managing the reliability of the system. So it's kind of like, it's making it easier for us to be able to not be so concerned with the high risk, because there's new measures that are coming into play that are helping. But that's a very good question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's just a general concern, of course, and I'll paraphrase what the gentleman online said, but I think even, and I don't know the details, somebody, maybe Marilyn can make some comments, but I think from the PUB perspective, there was power available, but regardless of that, since ERCOT is responsible for the reliability of the entire grid, they still had us do brownouts or blackouts or whatever they're called, even though, you know, our particular systems were ready to perform. So it's a very complicated topic. I'm preaching to the choir here, literally, right? But I think it's important for the community to know that in our decisions, as Daisy is highlighting, we take those things into account, you know, more than the narrative, if it's renewable or gas. We want to make sure that the decisions we're making are the correct ones, especially when we need them most, right? Which tends to be in those emergency situations. So, thank you. Anything else?
I think it would be useful to run through some scenarios. And so more than reliability, what I'm concerned about is, again, that we are going to have this, you know, this portfolio of generation working when we need to offset the most, right? As opposed to having the electricity, right? We need it. For us, we really just need it to be an offset for the prices we pay. But it does sound pretty good to me that the prices have been capped. So essentially, you know, instead of being on the hook for what, $30 million, it would be 15, which is great. It's an improvement, but it's still a huge cost. But okay, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate the presentation, and I appreciate PubCap members that came and gave us their insight. Thank you. Have a good night. Be back.
Okay, well, we'll move on to item E. Just wanted to check if there's any public comment. Okay, no public comment today. And we'll move on to item F, which are the consent agenda items. So please look at the list here. Let me know if there's any items that you would like to discuss. Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda items.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussions? Blanking out here, but is it all the ayes or?
All in favor? say
Yeah, all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
All opposed? Okay, item passes. Thank you.
Now you guys slap it down.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for that. We'll move on to item G. And G1, we'll start with the general manager's report.
Once again, good afternoon. And in your packet, you have the board calendar. The calendar consists of July, August, and September. We have the various different meetings that we have. We just had today our SRWA board meeting. Our next SRWA board meeting is on August the 4th, followed by September the 8th. Of important notice is we did swear in and welcome Mr. Sarkis on July the 2nd, and that's his official new board member start date. We also have the TPPA, which is the Texas Public Power Association Annual Meeting in Austin, Texas, on July the 14th to the 16th, which some of you will be attending, and we have approved some of that board travel all there as well. We will have our next Finance Committee meeting on August the 6th. We did not have one in July. And then tentatively, we have a PUB throughout roundtable for key account customers. We had one last year. And so we will, once we have the actual date of the roundtable for key account customers, we will notify the board if you all would want to attend. PUB holidays, as we had July 4th, we just had the PUB offices closed. And on September 1st, we will be observing Labor Day. Any questions on the calendar or concerns?
Isn't that in San Antonio, Texas?
My apologies, that is
I
correct. It is.
Just want to make sure I show.
That is on mine. Thank you. So yes, that is on San Antonio, Texas, the Texas Public Power Association meeting. Okay, any other questions on calendar? Thank you for keeping me on my toes, Dr. Holman. So yes, next item we have is the industry updates. On the back of the calendar, you do have the 2024 ERCOT State of the Market Report. ERCOT does have an annual report as well as quarterly, and I'm not going to go through the various different things, but if there's any questions at any time or any information, please let us know, and we will be happy to bring it back to the full board or take it up at the Regulatory and Policy Committee, any of the questions that may come up on that. Followed up, I also want to say that I did reach out to the general manager of Kerrville Utilities. He's also the past president of Texas Public Power Association, and Kerrville Utilities have met the needs for the resources, and of course, if they need, we've extended offer priorities. I realize the city of Browns also shared services on there, and our needs to the victims that it happens, our hearts will, our prayers are there. I get a little bit teary-eyed because there has been such devastation, and it could happen in any community at any time. And my heart's just really out for them. If we hear of any resources that are needed, we will notify you to let you know that we will be sending out crews or releasing our internal crews. With that, I will turn it back with staff, and we do have our upcoming staff presentations that I just want to make sure that staff does be mindful of the board's time and to consolidate some of their staff comments on there on the staff reports. I know that's a little bit further down, but I have talked to them since we have an extensive agenda item for staff reports. Any other questions? Okay.
No questions. Thank you, Marilyn, for that. And glad that you guys are already in touch with Kerrville. And we'll be on standby. Moving on to item 2, considering action on any items pulled. We do not have anything for that, so we'll continue down to item 3, G3 staff reports. We'll start with A.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So my name is Mike Perez. I am the Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be reporting on the financial performance report as of May 31st, 2025. So here we have the executive summary, which focuses on 7 categories. Each has its own gauge meter. Red representing poor, yellow is average, and green is good. So based on the flow of funds, we have, or BPB has generated $3,016,000 to replenish the improvement fund. Our debt service coverage is at 2.29 times, well above the 1.25 times minimum requirement. The fuel purchase and energy charge has generated an over recovery of $21.24 million. That's of May 31st. It is currently set at 0.05019, and it's been at that for the past 11 months through July, right? So, which is good. The FX rate it's been low. The COB cash transfer is higher than budgeted due to some lower COB utility usage and a lower FX rate. As I mentioned, it's been low at the 5 cents. The cash transfers, are $40,000 over budget and $660,000 above last year's level. So we're doing good there. On personal and non-personal expenses, those came in, $4.9 million under budget. And those are primarily due to some current vacancies and some timing issues. BPV's average bill is lower than the average, lower than both the average MOU bill and the average IOU bill for the 1,000 kWh residential user. And so that 1,000, that bill is at $111.26. The CIP year-to-date actuals and committed total 30.5 million and 44.4 million respectively, which represents 98.4% of the fiscal year 25 approved plan. So we're doing good. Most of it's already been committed, but only 40% has been expended. So we haven't moved the gauge to good. Our key financial metrics are currently in compliance.
Can you remind me what the target over recovery for the FX is?
The over recovery, the cost for production costs for power have been very low. And so even at the low rate of 5 cents, we've been generating over recoveries. Just the past 2 months, we did see under recoveries. So it's bringing the level down. We're anticipating here in the summer that those under recoveries will be a lot higher. And so it'll bring that balance down even further. So it has allowed us to maintain that rate at a very low level.
But what, didn't we talk about a number that we were
Say
targeting?
the policy number.
Oh, we can say?
Yeah, I think that might be. So policy says we have to aim for a certain amount in a certain amount of time. And I don't know if that's information that we keep seeking.
We typically discuss the fuel and purchase energy in closed session. If there's anything we would report out, we can discuss with council at that time what we could report out on there. But we do have a policy in place that allows us what it is. And these are strategies that others can potentially use against us if we're in competitive areas.
Okay.
And every finance meeting, we review it and see that, yeah, we're heading towards that number.
And it's in the agenda for today at the closed session.
Okay.
So I'll continue here. As Ms. Gilbert mentioned, in the interest of time, I'm just going to focus on the current year, May 2025. So here we have a condensed statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. This is according to the generally accepted accounting principles. And so we've got operating revenues through May 2025, which is 8 months into our fiscal year. We're $147,253,000. Our operating expenses were $127,309,000, leaving us with operating income of $19,943,000. Once we back out the non-operating revenues and expenses of $11,995,000, we end up with income before capital contributions of $7,947,000. Adding in capital contributions year to date of $10,430,000, we end up with an increase in net position year to date of $18,378,000. Adding this to the net position at the beginning of the year, we end up with a net position at the end of the period of $493,514,000. And so here we've got the condensed summary of revenues and expenses. This is based on the flow of funds in accordance with the bond ordinance. We got operating revenues, $139,717,000. Other revenues came in at $17,176,000. So total gross revenues, line 3, were $156,893,000. Once we back out the fuel and SRWA expenses of $49,429,000, we end up with an adjusted gross revenues of $107,466,000. This is the basis for the city's 10% transfer calculation. So the city is entitled to $10,746,000 off of that number. Moving on to line 6, once we back out other requirements for O&M, non-operating expenses, and our debt service of $82,870,000, we end up with a balance available after requirements of $24,596,000. Backing out the total cash and utility benefit to the city of Brownsville of $10,746,000, we end up with a balance available for transfers out of $13,849,000. That $13.8 million was used to fund our CIP and other cash reserve or reserves of $10,833,000, leaving a balance to replenish the improvement fund of $3,016,000. Here again, our debt service coverage ratio is at 2.29 times. That concludes my presentation. There's a whole bunch of more information that's available for your review. For the benefit of our new board member, we normally report on the first 3 pages of our financial report. And then the full report is presented on a quarterly basis. So for the month ending in June, next month, we will be presenting the full report to the board. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We'll move on to 3B, quarter report on GM CEO procurement authorization, second quarter.
Hi, good evening. I'm Diane Solitaire, Purchasing and Materials Manager. I'm going to be presenting the quarterly report on the GM CEO procurement authorizations for the second quarter, April through June of 25. The majority of the transactions were either competitively bid, state contracts, or amendments to current contracts or sole source. The water and wastewater and administration amount was $1,659,260.34. Electric was $251,497.58, with a grand total of $1,910,757.92. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
No questions? Yep. Moving on to 3C, drought update. Jaime Flores.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jaime Flores. I'm the Water Resources Administrator, and I'll be giving you the drought update. We actually have some good news. We've gone up slightly, 22.9%. And this does seem to be a reflection of some of the recent rains we've gotten. If you look over the last a couple weeks, June 7th was 22.2%, June 14th, 22.8%, June 11th, and June 21st, 22.8%. So there has been a slight increase over the last several weeks. The National Weather Service July to September outlook, 2025 outlook for the Lower Rio Grande Valley, Deep South Texas region. A hotter than normal average outlook is favored during the July through September 2025 timeframe. Confidence is beginning to lean towards a drier pattern outcome developing through August as the heat ridge is expected to establish itself over the desert Southwest region. Note September is normally our wettest month of the year, so we're hoping that we get some good rains in the watersheds that would fall into Falcon. The Falcon International Reservoir remained near historic lows at the end of June. Confidence is near certain 100% on total storage remaining at or near record lows through September. Only rainfall production from the remains of a tropical cyclone can effectively address the deficit. So water conservation is key until further notice. We're still on stage 2. Drought restrictions continued into early spring 2025 are likely to continue until further notice based on inflows from Amistad and Falcon. We're in stage 2 drought restrictions. I'm hoping we can finally reach maybe 25% and maybe get out of stage 2. We're still water use restrictions, or in stage 2 is water irrigation is allowed just 2 days out of the week, midnight through 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. through midnight. The same for car washing, midnight through 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. through midnight for 2 days out of the week, based on the last digit of service address. Additional restrictions on essential water is prohibited, such as washing buildings or sidewalks, using water for dust control, or allowing water to run off into streets. Hopefully we won't get stage 3, but we do have them if needed. And if you look in your package, you'll see the drought messaging for June on June 2025 from the website and social media. And our drought messaging for June 2025 is also in your packets. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, not at this time. Go ahead.
How do you enforce Talk to the people. How do you check or?
Right now, it's
The
a-
water-
Right now, that's in stage two. It's mainly just voluntarily. We do see anybody, there's a way to report on the website if somebody sees a blatant violation, or they can report it to BPUB. We can look into the matter. But mainly it's on a voluntary basis unless we do see anything out of the ordinary.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3D, share program balance update. Claudia Capetillo.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Claudia Capetillo. I am the Customer Service Administrator in the Collections Department. And I'm here today to provide you a follow-up update to the share program presentation that Acting Finance Director George Rangel provided last month. The just to give you a brief overview, I know we are running a little bit off on time, but just to give you a brief overview on the share program, the share program is intended for our BPUB residential customers who are in any type of financial distress or have had recent unexpected expenses. They could apply for the share program and they could get assistance to have their BPUB utility bill paid. Now, I won't go over the entire guidelines, but just to give you a brief idea, the most common one, people qualify due to low income. Low income, people who are disabled or recently been unemployed. The limitations to the program is that the customer can only be past due 2 months, and we can only assist with bills that are actually past due, and a customer can receive up to $200 per bill per customer. So it could go over multiple bills if need be. Now, we do work with 2 local agencies, Community Action Corporation of South Texas, which is KCOST, and we also work with Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley, which is CCRGV, to help with the certification of eligibility for our customers. Now, as we can see here, the share distributions have been happening, so that's very good news. Our customers have been getting assisted. Now, historically, the share program has been funded through community events and/or donations. Needless to say, both of those have decreased greatly over the years. Thankfully, in 2020, we did receive a $2 million one-time donation from BPUB towards the program, and that was due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2023, the emergency was lifted, therefore those funds were reappropriated to allow us additional time to use those funds for the same purpose. Now, as we can see here in 2025, these numbers, due to timing issues, these numbers are for May. I do have June numbers, but in 2025, as of May, we've assisted 4,800 customers, a little bit over $626,000 in funding. Now, currently, we are working with the Communications and PR Department to try to find additional funding mechanisms for the program. Because as of May, our balance is $336,379 with 58 cents to be able to assist our customers. On average, we assist about 600 customers monthly with a total of around $79,000. June numbers, to be exact, is a lot lower than that number up there. Our actual balance as of June is $255,017. That is what we have left for funding of the share program. Are there any questions that I can answer for you? Thank you. Okay, I would just like to ask Mr. Pequeño to provide a brief update on the previous funding for the share program.
Sure. Right. Good evening, everybody. Juan Pequeño, Board Counsel. As a lot of you may know, there's restrictions on use of public funds. So I am working with staff as far as providing guidance for funding mechanisms for this program, and we'll continue to do that. I have provided a memo to them as far as a legal opinion on what can be done. I'm happy to circulate that to anybody that would like a detailed analysis on that particular issue. But we are overviewing that as far as looking at what options we have for funding this program in the future. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer any that.
No questions. Thank you for helping the team with that one. Appreciate it, and we'll see whatever we can do within what we can do.
I just, since we have some PubCap folks here, if we could get a little bit of input from y'all about how you guys feel about this and how hard we should be pushing to set aside, if possible, legal funds to fund this program. So, you know, something to think about, input, we'd love to hear back from you all on.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 3G, which is 3F. Sorry, 3E, Ocelot Substation Project Update.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Cesar Cortinas. I'm the Director of Electrical Engineering and System Operations for BPOP. I will give you a brief project update on the Ocelot Substation, including project objectives, system needs limitations, project location, timeline and milestones, and the project cost summary at the end. The project objectives are to improve the system reliability by minimizing customer outages, provide a redundant power source for the customers, and reduce the military and Palo Alto substation overloading, which currently we are at 87% of one of the transformers of military and 85% at another transformer of Palo Alto. I hope I can explain this on my next slide. On the system needs and limitations, what you see on the screen is basically a map of this area. The top, we have Palo Alto, which is right next to the sport park. Down there, we have military substation, which is out of FM2 and Military Highway. Next to it is Midtown Substation, which is at Wild Rose Lane. The big circles, blue circles that you see on the screen is basically a 2-mile radius, which is basically the ideal distance that we want to serve our customers from substation. So the need that we have here is basically when we have an issue at Palo Alto, then we need to transfer our customers to an adjacent substation, in this case being military substation. So we run into both these issues, being on the distance between military and Palo Alto close to 4 to 6 miles. So we see voltage drops at the end of the circuits midway, and it's causing limitations on how to switch and transferring load between the stations. So eventually our cables, conductors get overloaded, and we need to do something about it. So to fill out this gap, the red dot right there is the proposed Ocelot substation. We basically will increase the BPU electrical system capacity by 56 megawatts. And we will be adding up to 6 new distribution feeders, providing the opportunity for backfeeding and surrounding stations during emergencies and outage conditions. So on the left, you see the overall brownfield map. Blue, we have the circuit, the BPU transmission lines, and the blue squares are the 15 BPU substations. The red square there is the Ocelot substation, which will be cutting into AAP line, which is shown in green. On the right, you see more close-up map where you see out of Express Report 77 out of Morrison Road. About a mile or so, you pass the Academy, you pass the Home Depot. Just before getting to the Bike and Hike Trail, we have a 3.62 acre tract of property owned by PUB, which takes me to my next slide, which is the time and milestones. Back in 2022, we identified this property and purchased the land. It was approved by the board in March in 2022. The next step was to find a qualified engineering firm. So we had to advertise the request for qualifications, and the board of directors approved the negotiation and contract execution with Allen & Gaynor in August of 2023. A few months later, in February of 2024, we executed the contract and we started engineering work and specifications. So in the past couple of years, I've been bringing before the board various long lead time items and equipment like power transformer, switch gears, the control house, and in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have the project started with the site grading. And today, you approved, thank you for approving the agenda item for the fence construction. Next month, you will see another agenda item, hopefully for the substation construction, which the bids close this week. At the end, the goal is to energize the substation before the next summer, which is May. We still need to finalize construction, do the testing and commissioning for the station. On the project cost summary, The estimated total cost for the substation project is 11.41 million, which includes $440,000 for engineering services, 1.26 million for land acquisition, about 2.85 million for construction, and the bulk of the budget is basically materials and equipment. It's up to 6.85 million. Up to, I want to say last month, when we run these numbers, we spent so far 2.53 million. However, we have contract commitments up to 6.38 million, and we still have some pending work to do. It's estimated 2.5 million. So big takeaways out of this project is mainly this project will benefit 1/5 of the BPUB customers, which are around 11,000 customers. We're definitely going to increase the system capacity of 56 megawatts. We are going to minimize the customer outages, and we'll provide redundant power to our core customers. And for sure, we're going to reduce the system overloading. That's the end of my presentation. I'll try to be pretty quick. I know we turn time. But if there's questions, I'll be glad to answer. If not, thank you.
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
How would it look? What would it look like?
How will it look like? It's a standard two-breaker substation, two transformer substation, a control house. Now, the fence is a little different because we go into with a different construction, which is block, concrete block. So the front of the fence, the front of the substation will be nice, not the typical chain link fence. We do have chain link fence with us towards the back of the property. So I know there's a picture there at the agenda that we approved today of the proposed. So when I go back to that consent agenda, you can see like a map showing the profile view of the fence if you want to kind of take a look at it.
So, yeah, I mean, people, so it's right on the hike and bike trail. And I mean, will there be any landscaping? Will there be any, like just making sure that it doesn't look?
No, we don't require to have landscaping because of the utility.
So how close to the trail would the fence be?
It will be, I want to say 5 to, no, well, you have the walking trail. It's about, I want to say easy 50 feet. You have about 100-foot right away. In the center of the right away, the hike and bike trail. So there's a ditch there that's very difficult for a person to walk to go to the station. But yeah, it's I would say no more than between 40 and 50 feet from the people walking trail.
So you said 14 or 15?
40 to 50.
40 to 50 feet.
Yeah.
So have you been by Silas Ray in the substation there on the hike and bike trail?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, it actually looks, I think, pretty cool, and it gives, we talked about doing, so granted, electrical engineer here, so take that with a grain of salt. But I think actually it's a good opportunity, and I know we talked about this a couple of years ago, and I never followed up with it. But we talked about putting some kind of signage up on the fence so that people could kind of identify what the different components did.
Yeah, I
what the
remember that.
substation does. But probably worth revisiting, but it does look kind of neat.
That's interesting, yeah.
Well, this should look better because of the block wall in the front.
Great, yeah.
You'll be able to see inside. So I mean, you walk through on Person Road.
If anybody has any idea on that point.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
Rio Grande substation is the newest substation that we have built. You can stop by. Okay.
Great, thank you. That's all.
All right, thank you for that, and wait to hear for some feedback later. If there's anything additional we can do there, make it look nicer. All right, so moving on to item F, presentation on the Brownsville Public Utilities Board Customer Satisfaction Survey. Marlena Ramos.
Good evening, Chair and members of the board. My name is Marley Ramos, and I am the Customer Service Administrator for the Customer Service Department. In today's presentation, I'll be giving you a briefing on the Customer Satisfaction Survey. Joining us today, we also have Seamus McNamee with Great Blue Research, who will also be available to answer any questions if needed. The purpose of the survey is to obtain information from our customers that can contribute to the improvement of the customer service experience and enhance our services. The Customer Service Department began the RFP process to select a vendor that would assist the utility with developing and distributing a customer satisfaction survey to residential and commercial customers. Through a competitive proposal process, PUB selected vendor Great Blue. Great Blue specializes in market studies for the utility industry with over 40 years of experience in consumer research, data analysis, and reporting. PUB and Great Blue collaborated to develop this survey. Phase one consisted of the distribution of the surveys via email to our customers who are signed up for online payments. Here you'll see a sample of the email that's being sent out to all customers with the exception of wastewater-only customers. Phase one has been completed, so here you'll see the preliminary results for the emails that have been sent out. The initial email blast went out with 61,000 emails. Of those emails, 2,707 bounced back as either invalid email or spam emails. There were 37 customers who unsubscribed. And we have about 221 that were completed on that first wave of emails that were sent out. In addition, Great Blue is sending reminders twice a week to those customers who have not clicked the link or completed the survey. So here we have a total of 162,660 communications that have been sent out. To date, I received an update actually on Friday after this presentation was created. And there is a total of 246,493 contacts that have been sent out by Great Blue. So PUB provided Great Blue with a list of 91,000 emails. Once all duplicate and inactive emails were identified, Great Blue was able to distribute the survey link to about 61,117 customers. So if you see on this chart, you'll see that they had about 25,000 duplicate emails and about 4,500 that came back as an inactive or an error on the email list, on the address that we had. Phase two will consist of an additional email blast for the remaining PUB customers, as well as a phone campaign where Great Blue will call about 200 customers to promote the survey. Customers able to select whether they're a residential or commercial customer at the beginning of the survey. Each category has its own individual set of questionnaires. So if you can see on this chart, which is also a little bit outdated from the numbers that I received on Friday, but on this chart, it shows a total of 587 residential customers have completed their survey and 40 commercial customers. The numbers that I have as of Friday are 815 residential surveys and 57 commercial surveys that have already been completed. So we have some various methods of communication. We have, it's not listed on here, but we did go to PubCap on June 18th with the presentation of the survey. And the communications and PR department is also pushing out communications on social media and through email blasts to notify our customers of this initiative that we're doing. So we ask you to talk to your friends and family, and if they have not received the survey yet, tell them to keep an eye out on their junk folder, on their email, or maybe contact customer service to ensure that we have the correct email address on file. And that's all I have for now. If anybody has any additional questions, we also have a sample survey after these slides. It is a little long because there are different variations to each question depending on the answers that you give. But if you have any questions.
So the company was hired to send the email blast and reminder and then to call about 500 customers.
200 customers will be called. That was part of the contract. That's the initiative that they do. And then they do the analytics on all of the results.
How much are we paying the company?
I believe the contract was 30,000. About 35,000 was the contract.
When are the results expected?
So the vendor is expected to present to the board either in the August or September meeting, just depending on the initiatives of pushing out the reminders and receiving. We want to make sure that we get back enough data before we come back to the board.
What's enough data, like a certain number of responses?
Yes, so I believe it's, Seamus, can you help me with that? What is the response percentage that we're looking for?
Yeah, we're looking for about 3 to 5% response rate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. This is not something I can really push out on social media because you have to verify that they're actual TV customers, right?
Well, what it is it's a link that's sent out. We also have a QR code that is on our social media page. They do have to verify in their, Seamus, do they verify their address on there, or how do they verify that they're a PV customer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they would just verify that they are a bill payer. And then obviously they would get that screen that Marley showed where they would be asked what type of account they have.
So that is something I can share.
Mhm,
Okay, so
absolutely.
I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, great.
A question, when did this email blast start?
The email blast started about 3 weeks ago when the initial emails went out. But again, the first list of emails that we had were the ones that we know are the most accurate emails, which are our customers who use our online system. We do have a lot of outdated emails. We did start a campaign to update customer information because we knew that this was going to roll out. So we will say that we knew that the most accurate emails that we had were the customers who were using our online services. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, maybe there's other things we can do to incentivize more participation, but I'm sure we'll talk about that later. Moving on to item 3G, advanced metering infrastructure, AMI update. Jaime Aguilar.
Yes, good afternoon, Board Chair, members of the board. I'm Aguilar, Division Manager for Enterprise Solutions, and I'll be presenting an update on the AMI project. I want to start off by the completed milestones. Over the course of these past couple of months, we have accomplished quite a bit. I'll start off with the electric network devices have been installed. I do want to note that essentially our water meters and our electric meters are communicating to us via two different pathways. One of them is through cellular base, and the other one's through the RF mesh IP. The electric meters, they do communicate via RF mesh IP, hence we installed 56 devices across our service territory, which includes 17 gateways and 39 routers. Essentially, the routers are the ones that pass the data between the locations till they get to the collector or the gateway. The gateway is the one that actually transmits the data over to the utility. Also, the head-end systems and the meter data management systems have been provisioned. Essentially, for awareness, the head-end systems are the two systems for electric and the water that collect the raw reads, the interval data, any alarms or events. Essentially, it aggregates all that data, collects it, and then pushes it onto a separate system called the meter data management system. That's the one that essentially encompasses both commodities into one system and allows us to do billing, analytics, et cetera. In addition, data mapping and interfaces have been completed and or established. For data mapping, we are working with 4 or 5 different systems, so therefore we needed all the systems to talk the same language. So it did take quite a bit of effort between the consultants, the vendors, and also the subject matter experts to figure out, okay, how do we make these specific systems talk the same language? Regarding the interfacing, essentially, once we got them talking the same language, how do we move that data? How do we flow it through the different systems? Moving on to Allegiant. Allegiant is our installation partner. They're the ones that are taking on the task of installing not only the network equipment, but also the electric and the water meters. As of the end of June, June 23rd to be exact, Allegiant has installed 5,706 meters, or 9%, and 6,824 meters, or 11%.
I will note that on average, weather permitting, they are averaging about 600 meters weekly installs for water and about 650 weekly installs for electric. In the previous board meeting, it was discussed that we did encounter an issue with billing. Some of our customer bills were impacted. There was a billing discrepancy. BPB did identify 995 customer bills impacted with one of the following issues, whether it be delayed billing, consumption history not displaying correctly, or double customer service charge on the bill. Staff from across the different departments such as CIS, collections, customer service, have worked diligently to mitigate that impact to the customers. By mitigating, they were able to adjust the bill or add a credit memo. We did notify all the customers affected. It's about 995 customers. They were notified via either a mass phone call, or in some cases, they were contacted directly by a CSR. I will note that as of today, the measures were implemented to resolve that root cause. So future bills should not be impacted related to this particular issue. And just as a sample, this is what a customer would have seen for the double customer service charge. On the left side is the old meter, the one that was pulled. There's a customer service charge. And on the right side, on the same bill, it's the new meter. And that's the double customer service charge that I was identifying earlier. And are there any questions?
Just on the timeline, I mean, I think that's pretty good, 11%, 9%. But do you guys feel comfortable with the timeline you have for the mass deployment?
Correct. So we anticipate project close March of 2027. Allegiant has been really aggressive installing. Like I mentioned, they're averaging about 600, 650 meters installation. Allegiant has noted that if we need them to ramp up, they can. They can very well add more resources to ramp up. It's really, I wouldn't say like a tug of war as far as how many can they install and how many can the utility accommodate for, because as they're installing these meters, we do have these customers calling us for questions and whatnot. So we have to balance it as we go along, in addition to whatever meters we do have. So we do have a shipping schedule that we're getting the meters in, and Allegiant's in turn installing those meters. But yes, we're pretty comfortable with the scope and the schedule of the project so far.
All right, any additional questions?
I'll just make an observation. Every time I walk downtown and I see the plastic covers on the water meters and the little, transmitter kind of sticking out, I think about you, Eddie, since, we talked that one day right after you started the project. So anyways, yeah, it's been fun watching. Appreciate it.
Yep,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item GH. Presentation and discussion of BPUB's NERC compliance program and policy. Gustavo Leal.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Gustavo Leal, and we're gonna bring a presentation on NERC compliance. Okay, I can go. Okay, so why NERC compliance is important? The acronym for that is the North American Reliability Corporation. It is important because really we don't have an option. We have to comply with those rules and regulations. This NERC is the entity that regulates all the electric utilities in the United States, Canada, and small part of Mexico and California. What are the responsibilities of the NERC? Is to protecting the power grid and electrical generation from physical and cyber attacks in all the North America, prevents random blackouts, regulate the system, investigate incidents, and finding solutions for the cause. This is the main role of the NERC. What are the origins? Basically, in 1965, there was a big blackout on the northeast of the country, and that forces at the time, the president ordered an investigation for these, and that's how NERC was formed in 1968. And it was just a voluntary standard, so nobody was obligated to follow them. And what happened after that? Another blackout, northeast again. So because of that, this is how it looked that time in 2003, an aerial picture. you can see on your on left-hand side, the blackout, and then after on the blackout and before the blackout. So it's a pretty extensive area, New York, Connecticut, all that area was affected, about 90 million customers. So it was a lot. Because of that, Energy Policy Act was enacted. So this was giving the PERC 4693 was forcing to these standards were created originally by the NERC formation that were used as a basis to order and make it enforceable, all these standards to the utility companies. PERC 4706 basically ordered NERC to do the critical infrastructure protection or CIP standards. This was protecting cyberly and physically all those cyber assets that those utility companies have in there. The hierarchy normally is DOE, PERC, NERC, AERO, and the regional entities, the way they audit and enforce all these regulations throughout the nation. The U.S. Department of Energy, of course, is at the very top, and then the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is the independent agency that regulates and the interstate transmission of electricity, natural gas, and oil. They give you the North American or NERC as the designated AERO, the Electric Reliability Organization, which this is the one that gives it the entity to the authority to provide fines to companies that were in compliance with these regulations. And of course, the regional entities in our case, here in ERCOT, we have the Texas RE is the agency that locally in Texas or ERCOT comes and audit the utilities here locally. This is a NERC interconnection. There we have 3 big interconnections, and there's a Quebec interconnections. All these interconnections are separately. They don't have AC transmission going from one side to the other. In order to transport power through these interconnections, they have to transport it on a DC. They have to have DC type, which convert the AC current to DC and back to AC if they want to transport it. Just to give you a vision of how it looks, the whole entire system in the nation. There are currently about 87 standards. From those 87, 74 are operational and planning, what we call the PERC Order 693. And 13 of those are on the critical infrastructure protection. Of course, there's a lot of sub-requirements on those total requirements. BPOV is currently registered with NERC as the transmission owner, transmission operator, transmission planner, and distribution provider, and generation owner and generation operator. Based on those, some of those regulations apply to one or the other registrations. This is the NERC reliability standards from NERC. So how do BPOV provide compliance with these regulations? Of course, we have the NERC compliance department. There's 4 coordinators that work together with me and the NERC compliance. The more affected areas are the Energy Control Center, because they have the control and monitoring of the entire system. SCADA, which provide technical support into the Energy Control Center, make sure that all those communications are in good shape, because we have to operate those systems 24/7. So we don't have option other than make sure that those are in working order. Silent Ray, that's our only power plant that has compliance with NERC. And it's a separate NERC regulatory for them, because it's a low impact facility. Same thing as we have electrical systems planning, which is engineering. They have to do all these studies for the short term and long term analysis to make sure that we are providing the necessary generation and transmission for our customers and for the bulk electric system to be reliable. Substations is also another department that is impacted. And the reason is because they have a lot of protection. They have the protections that protect all the equipment and instruments on the transmission system, and that so we don't damage equipment if there's faults on the systems, like shorts, line to line or to ground. So they have the sensor that detect those faults in the system and open the circuits. That way, they don't do any further damage to the equipment. And of course, we report directly to the legal services and executive management and to your board. We have to bring information every time there is some changes on those policies. Something is relevant to bring some information. So we're rating these facilities, all the facilities in the utility industry as high, medium, or low, depending on right line criteria. So of course, the higher, the more rules that apply to them, the more strict they are, the lower it is. Personnel that have access, physical or cyber access to all these facilities, they have to go through a personal risk assessment, like a 7 years background checks, performance, performed at the local, state, and federal level, and identity confirmation. Cybersecurity training and awareness is provided. The cybersecurity is provided annually, and the awareness is provided to all these employees monthly, on a monthly basis. We establish an electronic and physical security to protect our cyber assets, like the SCADA system. Those are established, that they have the firewalls and all the equipment necessary to protect them. And physically, there's access restricted to those areas. Incident response and disaster recovery. We also practice drills every year, make sure that the staff is ready in case there's an incident, and also to recover from those incidents. Information protection. It is also one of the standards that we need to protect all that information that resides on those places or locations or facilities. This prevents from unauthorized access to the VPV cyber system information. And there, when they are at rest or in transit, they always have to be protected all the time. Supply risk management. Also, we have procedural controls to assess and manage risk originating from the supply chain. And NERC compliance activities, the way that NERC and Texas RE perform these activities, they schedule outages mostly are every 3 years, and they can be on-site or they can be remote, and they can be on the operations and planning standards or the critical infrastructure. The spot checks, they can provide a spot check at any point in time. They only have to target the review and the specific compliance areas, the standards, and they just can come and spot check this entity or our entity. Or there's an investigation because there was a possible violation, or initiated a self-report, complaints, or other type of analysis, they can just come and do an investigation as they wish. Now, when we have an audit, Texas RE is sending email notifications to the entities that are going to be audited to 270 days in advance to advise us about the audit. And actually, we just received an email from them that we're going to be audited on 2016. So that kind of puts us around February month next year for an audit from them.
2026?
2026, yes, February. Did I say something different?
2016.
Oh, 2016, I'm sorry. Okay. Texas RE will send an email, and also they will send us a notification about 120 days in advance to that includes like the audit notification letter, general information about the auditors, the audit team members and participants, bios, important documentation, dates and deadlines, standard requirements that included. This is important. That's when they're going to send us which standards are we going to be audited on. And we'll know by then exactly. So anyway, we're supposed to be ready at any time, but during that time is when we start collecting all this information and put it together, because they send us spreadsheets and questionnaires so we can respond back to them. General information, compliance on site or visual remote, audit type SIP or operations and planning. Our duration normally is about 2 weeks. They can be on site, like I mentioned, or remotely. The audit period is normally 3 years, like I mentioned before. And On the 2023 audit, that was the last audit that we have, about 3 years ago. We had 3 potential non-compliance. One of those compliance, they provide us the compliance exemption, which means it was very minimum, no penalties, because it was just mainly a paperwork issue, not a technical issue where we're not doing things, but it was just a paperwork. And the second one is it was find, fix, and track. So basically, it was the same thing. I don't want to go into specific, because for those we need to go to closed session, but basically that non-compliance was discovered at the time, but it was fixed. So again, it doesn't include any penalties for that. And we still got one pending, and this is on, probably we're gonna get dismissal, I feel, because again, it was something that we could improve during the audit, but later on, we find information that I think we're gonna be dismissed, but we'll see. But they still have to provide us with that information. Other than that, of course, we do other things like information that is provided by the Public Utility Commission, the PUCT rules, changes on the rules, things like those. We also look at the nodal protocols, ERCOT operating guides, and our regulatory projects as need to. And with that, I conclude my presentation. I'm sorry if we went real fast, but I guess.
No, that's fine, Gustavo. Thank you. I know it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to understand. In general, I think it's complicated,
Yeah.
right? There's a whole stack, right? We play in all the different levels of the power, and it's a highly regulated industry.
Correct.
Because we want to make sure that it's stable and safe, and, you know, we're not affecting others, and making sure that we're providing the, you know, the power in this case, you know, to our own community, et cetera. So, yeah, thank you for sharing, and we'll be monitoring, you know, for the audit, and if you need any additional support from the board, you know, we're happy to support it. But since it's a lot of technical stuff, you can, I'm sure you can manage it.
Thank you very much. And we'll bring that information as we go through the audits, for sure.
So I'd actually like to report on these 3 findings.
Okay.
Because I think I know what one of them was, and I think I have some strong feelings about them. And also, would it be a good idea to have somebody internally look over these problems, possible other problems that might exist, and make sure that we do our best to get a clean bill of health next audit, which, man, they give you a lot of time to prepare.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We can provide it with our information. Just remember, these are rules and regulations, and it's up to interpretation of the auditors. And our interpretation sometimes a little bit different, but so far we haven't had any major things that we've been having problems here and there, but nothing that was financially affected throughout this.
Do we have like an internal audit?
Internal audit?
That's part of the audit, or is that like a requirement, or?
No. Just wait for the audit. There's no requirement like that.
All righty. So yeah, just make sure you provide
Absolutely.
some other information. I would just share it with all the board, and those with interest, we can follow up with you and see if there's anything, any questions that we may have.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Gustavo.
Oh, thank you.
We'll send that information over your security emails for PEV, and that information will probably come out of our legal department. Paul Gonzalez oversees the compliance area of the organization, and so that's one of the things, the separation and delineation of duties is one of the things that we've done now to separate ourselves.
All righty, thank you. Moving on to G3I, presentation on the Brownsville Public Utility Board Water and Wastewater Master Plan.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Marie Leal, and I am the Director of Water, Wastewater Engineering and Capital Planning. The purpose of the master plan is to study and develop a plan consisting of a comprehensive guidance and long-term strategy for improving the BPB water and wastewater infrastructure, and also to investigate projected system demands. This plan will develop a CIP for the water and wastewater systems with projected loads, and it is based on the land use assumption plan prepared by the city of Brownsville. Mr. Ethan Shires with Freeze Nichols will now present the findings of the BPB water and wastewater master plan.
Good evening. Thank you all for your time. I'll try to go as quick as I can. We got lots of slides and information here, and I know we presented this a few weeks ago to the Facilities Committee. We'll go as quick as I can. If we have questions and things at the end, we can talk through that. So there's a quick agenda. We'll kind of jump right into it. So the first start of this process was to just kind of get an understanding of BPB's existing water and wastewater systems. So we start with the water system. Thankfully around here, the elevations are relatively flat, makes the water system fairly simple. You guys have a fairly simple water system that seems to be operating pretty well. So once we kind of wrap our heads around that, we go through and develop a hydraulic model of the systems to try to represent that digitally on our computers that we can then analyze. We distributed out 20 temporary pressure recorders to kind of understand how the existing system operates. We worked with staff to obtain GIS data, as-built data, operational data, that kind of thing, and to calibrate our model to it. So you can kind of see some graphs there on the right of how well we were able to calibrate our models and ultimately end up where we feel like we're very well representing the existing system, kind of moving forward into our hydraulic analysis. Similar on the wastewater system, although like we talked about, unfortunately, flat elevations may help our water system, they make our wastewater system more complex. Wastewater systems are operated by gravity. As that gravity, as the flow kind of trickles down through the system, you have to lift that back up into the wastewater treatment plant. BPUB operates 177 total lift stations. As far as I'm aware, that's second most in the state behind the city of Houston. So very complex wastewater system and lots of kind of dynamic operations, and really kudos to staff and how they are able to kind of operate that and maintain that. We worked closely with them to kind of get an understanding of how that wastewater system operates. Similarly to the water system, we also distributed out 20 temporary flow monitors. So put them out into the system. We're able to get, record data on how those the flow monitors were operating during that system flow, velocity, depth, and that kind of thing. And then we use that to calibrate our wastewater model. It's a little more complex on the wastewater modeling side than the water model, so we didn't model all of the system, but we're actively modeling 94% of that. Industry average is closer to like 50%. So we feel really good and really confident about the data that we had to kind of build that wastewater model. And then we're able to calibrate that to, within 0.5% of dry weather conditions and, 2 to 3% of observed wet weather conditions. Again, the industry average there is 5 to 10%. So we feel very good about, very confident about how well we were able to calibrate the wastewater system. You can see an example graph there. So once we developed those models, the hydraulic models of the system, we worked, as Marie mentioned, with the city of Brownsville and took future projections in terms of development and kind of distributed that development across the systems. We also worked, I'll show a slide here in a second, about other plan developments and information that we have for developments moving forward. And we've identified a quote unquote build out planning period that's roughly 2050 based on kind of growth trends and some information that we've seen. But just trying to kind of project that out into, okay, how much do we think the system is going to grow in the future that we can then use to develop our capital improvement plan on the budget kind of accordingly in the future. Another number there that's worth noting is this target growth rate, about a 1.5%. It fluctuates a little bit, differences between the water system and wastewater system. That was kind of our guide based on the information we had available to project out that future growth into the future. So there's just some information on the plan developments. And so again, we kind of worked with staff and information that we had available. Various stages of those, they may already be under construction or just kind of initially in the abstract kind of planning process, but wanted to make sure that we had all the information that we could get available as we projected those out into the future. So once we kind of had a good handle on, okay, what are we anticipating, what growth is going to happen, we have to convert that into our water demands and wastewater flows. And there's kind of the numbers that we look at there. So we took a look at historical water production as well as historical wastewater treatment information, as well as the pressure data that we recorded and the flow monitoring data that we had available, and came up with kind of our per capita and various demand criteria to project out there. So it's, you know, it's worth noting that this is highly flexible, right? It's based on historical averages, and so not, you know, directly correlated in the future. There's quite a more broad, wide range there that we could kind of anticipate. But overall, the system is really doing a good shape. Is really doing a good job. It's in a good shape. And so it's really kind of hats off to staff and how they're operating the water system, but also hats off to your customers and how they're, you know, consuming that water and being, you know, conservation and just being aware of the water that they're using. As long as those trends kind of continue into the future, we'll be able to kind of carry through that. We want to be conservative from a planning standpoint, but we do, you know, kind of want to account for any of that kind of conservation into the future as well. So you can kind of see on that graph there, the blue line that we're showing there is what we anticipate kind of that worst case scenario. We want to be conservative for that future process for our average day demand. But the red line shows if historical trends continue and we continue to be more efficient with our water usage, you know, high efficiency developments, washers, that kind of thing. You can see it kind of trends more flat. So somewhere, the reality really somewhere in the middle there. Again, we want to be kind of conservative on the high side there. But again, in general, over the data that we had available was over 10 years worth of data. The system's been operated really well. So that's kind of the important thing to take there. Same thing on the wastewater side. The variability is a lot less, at least in terms of kind of customer operations. The wastewater side is really variable to weather conditions. As you know, as we talked about some of the heavy rainfalls we experienced here in Central Texas, obviously that causes flooding and all sorts of other issues, but it also impacts your wastewater system. Especially for you guys that have a really dynamic system with lots of lift stations, can kind of further compound things. So kind of breaking that out here and just looking at what are our treatment plant conditions. You can kind of see there, just kind of grow, continue to increase as the system grows. Important kind of breakpoints to point out here is the TCQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. They have, for wastewater treatment plants, they have a 75-90 rule. So we have to, at 75%, we have to be planning for a wastewater treatment plant expansion, and that has to be under design. At 90%, we've got to be under construction. We never want to hit 100%, right, of our plant capacity. So we're projecting roughly in that kind of 2030 period, 2035, we're going to hit that 75%. And then we're not quite ever going to hit that 90% rule. So because these are build out conditions, right, we don't anticipate needing future plant expansions. We can kind of go through that process with TCQ for variance when we get there. But we want to make sure that we have a plan kind of to account for that as we move forward. So we'll talk about that a little bit when we get to the CIP. Okay, so that's our future demand projections. Now we move into, okay, how do we evaluate? What does this mean for the existing systems? So we'll start with the water system. I'm not going to go through all those numbers here, but these are all the design criteria that we use to evaluate your water distribution system. The important thing to break out there is that we have a 68% ACR, that's alternative capacity requirement. So again, based on how the system is operated historically, all of the parameters that we're seeing are, once you combine them all together, 68% lower than your average customer across the state. So really, again, hats off to how the system has been operated and how the customers have, stayed on top of conservation and all of those kind of things. That allows us to assess the system under a kind of less stringent criteria based on that historical information. And that's a process that TCQ allows us to kind of take advantage of. So we're counting for that 68% ACR. I want to make sure that we're able to maintain that in the future. So here's kind of our existing system numbers and what we're showing here. So everything, again, lots of numbers, lots of tables, but these are just all the various things that we evaluate. What I want you to focus on is kind of the yes, no answers there on the far right column. Existing system, everything's great. The system's being well maintained. And, again, like I said, staff's doing a great job kind of staying on top of those things. The question is, okay, how do we continue to maintain that high level of service in the future? So that's what these next couple slides show here. I forgot I pulled in here just a couple of examples of other analyses that we've used to evaluate the system. So fire flow analysis, just kind of, makes for a pretty map. Anything that's in yellow is what we consider good. Red is obviously bad. Orange is in that kind of range that we may want to address. So overall, the system is in really good shape and the water system is operating really well. Maybe a few pockets we want to kind of address moving forward, but other than that, it's doing good. We also evaluate minimum pressure as well. TCQ mandates a minimum pressure of 35 PSI. That would show up in red on this graph. We don't have any of those issues. The lowest pressure, as I remember, is in a worst case scenario is sitting around 39 PSI. So we're doing a good job. Okay. Similar process on, oh no, we're not going to wastewater yet. I'm sorry. Now we're going to the future analysis.
So my slides look like they got formatted, it is messed up a little bit there, but this is our future analysis where we take that same assessment criteria, combine it with our future demand projections, and then evaluate that demand moving forward. So you'll notice a couple of ends start to show up, right? We are projecting in the future some deficiencies according to these various criteria. That starts with our capacity, so the production capacity, excuse me, the ability to provide clean water in the future. So we'll need to identify a plant expansion roughly in that 2045 time period. And, you know, we work with the staff on that. The next one is there are our pumping requirements. Actually, pumping is in really good shape, and that's that kind of primary distribution pumping in the second table. But the alternative pumping capacity is a little more stringent to make sure that we provide appropriate redundancies. We are projecting roughly in that 2050 time period, we'll need some extra redundancies. Lastly is elevated storage, and that's, you know, your storage tanks, your elevated storage ESTs, and as well as total storage at the plants. In general, everything's looking really well there. We will need a little bit of extra elevated storage. We're just kind of barely over the threshold in that 2050 period as well. So you'll kind of see projects that we've identified to rectify those anticipated deficiencies in the CIP when we get there. So now we're going over to wastewater. And again, lots of numbers, lots of information here. The TCQ doesn't have quite as prescriptive requirements on the wastewater side as they do water. So we rely a lot more on industry best practices, industry standards, that kind of thing. Everything's kind of outlaid there, but ultimately what we're looking for here is we utilize our hydraulic model to assess that system. And what we're trying to prevent on the wastewater system is sanitary sewer overflows, spilling basically of wastewater out of the system, right? So we developed a design storm. We use our hydraulic model to assess both the existing and future systems, and then, you know, project out, okay, where does that surcharging occur? Where does the system not have capacity? Anything here that's shown, those kind of red circles are what we project to be a problem. Yellow is not quite a problem yet, but is getting to that point, that 3 feet threshold. And then red and blue lines, those are identifying to us where those capacity restrictions are occurring. So again, you guys have a lot of lift stations. Of those, we're also evaluating the capacity of that lift station, the pumping capacity. Firm capacity, we identify as just one pump out of service and basically as redundant. And so we are kind of identifying 50%, roughly a third of those facilities to kind of be over that initial threshold. The next step is, okay, what if we have that extra pump available to us? 16 of those lift stations are above that threshold. And then lastly, I'm not showing the number here, but it would potentially cause an SSO in this kind of hypothetical scenario. There are 12, it's 11 or 12 facilities that hit that trigger. So we're able to kind of prioritize accordingly. We're going to focus on those kind of 12 main areas and then move to the 16 and then move to the 50 and so on and so forth. So that's just kind of a summary of how the wastewater system is operating. Slides really washed out here, but now we're getting into the CIP. So this is our water CIP map. And again, you know, lots of lines, lots of numbers on here, but in general, kind of what we're identifying our projects out in the future. Anything in red is going to be high priority. That's our short-term projects, stuff that we, you know, want to make sure we get into the next 5 years roughly to kind of continue to maintain system performance in the future. Blue is 10 years, kind of intermediate. Green is that long-term. And then purple is build out. So most of those purple projects are going to be extending service out into new kind of service areas where we're not, you know, serving existing customers. So now where we get to the numbers, again, you know, this is kind of the primary outcome of our master plan is to identify this capital improvement plan, CIP, to really just kind of identify a budget and give us a framework for a plan moving forward in the future to empower staff to say, okay, you know, these are the projects that we need. This is how much they're going to cost. Now we can budget for them accordingly, get them into our budget and start implementing those as we move through the future. So in that 5-year, you know, high priority projects, we've got about 32 million worth of improvements. Specifically that project 1 and 2, kind of the high priority projects. We want to get implemented to really help kind of balance the system and flows across the system and make sure that we have appropriate redundancies. As we kind of, you'll see, you know, we're expanding, we're accounting for future growth as we move through the future planning period. The other thing I kind of want to bring out here is that project 20 there at the bottom, the green, that's that wastewater, or excuse me, water treatment plant expansion. That's going to, you know, make up the vast majority of this projected budget. So staff's working on that. We're obviously going to work with SRWA as well to expand that plant, and that's kind of being accounted for. We're not showing that to be needed
from a strict hydraulic capacity standpoint until that 20-year planning period. We may want to kind of implement it ahead of schedule just for redundancy purposes and that kind of thing, but that's kind of in the works. And then, like I said, long-term stuff is mostly just kind of extending service into future areas that'll be development driven. That's what that D is, and the suffix on some of those projects are, we're anticipating the developer is going to fund the majority of that project as we extend service to you. Okay. I'm going to shift over to wastewater just so we can kind of get moving. Similar process here. Red is our high priority projects, and blue is that intermediate planning period. And then green is kind of long-term, and purple is build out. You'll notice, and like I discussed, we prioritize those lift stations accordingly. So anything that was projected to, it may exceed firm capacity, but only by 5 or 10%, and it doesn't ever exceed total capacity. We've identified those for build out. We're not going to worry about them unless it comes up and a developer comes in, or it becomes an issue from a condition standpoint and we need to replace it. Now we know what size it needs to be replaced at. But otherwise, we're not really going to worry about it. What we're really focused on is those red projects where we know, okay, there's some existing deficiencies based on the design criteria that we've identified. So I'll jump right over into costs, just so you can see all these numbers here. So again, wastewater system is a lot more complex. That means that we have, a lot more capital improvements that we have to kind of maintain moving forward in the future. So we got about 68 million in that 5-year, that kind of short-term planning period, roughly 5 years. And those are our high priority projects, and you kind of see, these are the plans where, we want to implement these projects to provide appropriate redundancy, appropriate system capacity, and even from an O&M standpoint. And the example that I talked about there is that project 1 is that Alton Gloria force main expansion. Right now, that system is operating okay, but it makes for operational and maintenance struggle because those pumps, the force mains are experiencing really high velocities, which wears your pumps down. It can cause issues during peak conditions. So we're going to kind of implement that project to make sure that it's operating more smoothly, as well as providing appropriate capacity during the kind of worst case wet weather conditions. So again, same kind of process here. We kind of move into the 10-year that's mostly growth oriented. And then as we get into the 20 in purple, those are, again, mostly development driven. And we've also phased out those lift station improvements that aren't as significant as some of the other ones. So that's kind of a crash course on that. We got one more slide. And like I said, we talked about a little bit of the potential wastewater treatment plant expansion. We've identified what that project is. It's not incorporated into the primary CIP, but it is an alternative in case we need it in the future. It's over there by the Brownsville Sports Park, just kind of south of the interstate, that railroad crossing as well. So in the event that we need it, growth patterns change or something changes in the future, we've at least identified this as a preliminary plan and then can start implementing it once it becomes needed. All right. So that's kind of the end of it. I know that's a lot of numbers and stuff for you guys, but wanted to get through that and be respectful of your time. Any questions?
Thank you.
Any questions? Concerns? Do you guys review some of this on the water side? SW.
We haven't had this SRWA, but I do want to point out, just kind of interesting walking around numbers for everybody, that the wastewater, was about 2 to 3 times as expensive as, the treated water. So something to think about as we move forward and we think about budgets. Dealing with waste is expensive.
Yeah. So no questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And guess we'll see how looking at these projects going forward, which ones will materialize in the shorter term. Thank you as well, Marie. Moving on to item number 4, presentation, discussion, and possible recommendation on an overview of BPUB's debt and commercial paper program and a resolution by the Brownsville Public Utilities Board relating to the issuance and sale obligations designated as City of Brownsville, Texas Utility System Revenue Refund Bonds and approval of other matters in connection therein. Mike?
Yes, good evening. Mike Perez, CFO. So the Brownsville PUB staff has been working with Estrada Hinojosa, our financial advisor, in assessing market conditions for the conversion of outstanding commercial paper notes to long-term debt, as well as various bond refunding opportunities. Preliminary analysis reflects opportunity to achieve savings for existing bond obligations, as well as to fix outstanding commercial paper notes at favorable rates. So a presentation was made to the Finance Committee on May 28th by Estrada Hinojosa, and that provided a general overview of the Brownsville PUB's outstanding debt and market update. Attached to your packets is a resolution that upon adoption by the board will evidence the board's consent to the issuance and sale of refunding bonds and further seek the city commission's approval for the sale and issuance of bonds designated as City of Brownsville, Texas Utility System Revenue Bonds, which may be issued as tax exempt or taxable bonds in one or more series. So with us tonight, we have Noe Hinojosa participating via WebEx that'll be making a presentation. Also with us is Mr. James Hernandez, our bond counsel with the firm of Greenberg Traurig. James was the one that drafted the resolution. But at this time, I'll turn it over to Noe. Noe, if you can just tell us which page you're presenting so that we can ensure that the correct page is being projected on the screen.
Sure, I will. Thank you, Mike. Chairman Martinez, Noe Hinojosa here, and members of the board, sorry for not being there with you tonight. I think as Mike mentioned, with me is Mr. James Hernandez with Greenberg Traurig, also native of Brownsville, and bond counsel to PUB. Just very quickly, if you can go to page 3. What we're doing in the next couple of items is the previous page. I'm sorry, George. Oh, yeah, thank you. What we're doing in the next couple of items is seeking your approval to go before the City Commission later in the month, July 22nd to be exact. Anything that the city or the PUB for that matter does regarding debt, it must be approved by the board as a recommendation to the commission. Then the commission will consent by approving a bond ordinance that will then be prepared, or documents be prepared to take that to the investors, take that to lenders. What's being considered tonight is a portion of the Brownsville PUB's outstanding debt. What I mean by that, if you go quickly, I think it's page 7. There it is. Basically, the PUB today has about 11 different loans totaling about $254 million, 450,000. That does not include $30 million of what we make reference as commercial paper. The 11 different loans, consider those like mortgages, personal mortgages, like you and I would have mortgages on our various homes, or homes for that matter. PUB has 11 different loans. They're fixed rate. They normally have payments from year 25 all the way out to 2041 thereabouts. And I'll take you to the next page in a minute. But having said all that, what we're looking at is just a portion of 2 loans, the 2015s and 2013As. They're currently carrying interest rates at higher than today's market. By exercising the refinancing of those loans, we think we could get about $2 million in present value savings. What's more important today or tonight is having the PUB board contemplate extending a commercial paper program that was first originally authorized to have back in 2013. The commercial paper program, don't look at that as a mortgage, but look at that as a line of credit, as a credit card. So from time to time, PUB will access this credit card to do financings for projects that will ultimately require a long-term fix, a long-term financing. And today, as we speak, out of the $100 million authority or line of credit authority that we have, $30 million is currently being used. The $30 million, after tonight's action of replacing what we call a liquidity, a letter of credit provider service, that $30 million will have to be refunded, will have to be paid off, and it will be paid off with a long-term bond. So having said all that, what tonight's item contemplates is, one, allow us to extend, meaning when I say allow us, go to the commission to allow the PUB to have you to continue to have this $100 million line of credit. And then refinance certain bonds for purposes of savings. So all in all, if you go to the next page, all in all, when you think about what is it that the PUB generates in revenues, if you go to the 2024, the very far right-hand column, you'll see at the very top, 243 million in revenues, or 244 to round that up. Out of that 244, I believe about 80 million is used for for wholesale fuel costs, and about 90 to 95 million is for operating costs. So on top of those 175, there's about $28 million that the PUB currently pays annually to investors. And if you see the graph below that, if you see the graphs below the income statement operations, you're going to see this yellow line that goes from year 25 out to 2051. That is what is your net income after taking out operating expenses and other non-operating expenses, as reflected on 2024. You had operating expense of 175, and then non-operating expenses in the positive of 2,349,000. So your actual available for debt service was $70 million. That yellow line, as you go across from 25 all the way to 2051, covers your monthly or your annual payments, I'm sorry, of the various loans. So whenever we go to the marketplace, it takes us about 90 days. By the time PUB decides what is it that it would like to finance long term, we got to have a CIP. We got to have the ability to determine what is it that we really need to fund. By the time we go out to the board with a recommendation, and then the board proceeds in making a recommendation to City Commission, the City Commission then authorizes you to go out and sell those bonds. It takes about 90 days to fund that. The commercial paper program does not require you to go out through that process. The line of credit is always there in case of emergencies, in case of unforeseen circumstances, to be able to access those funds and go fund whatever it is that you need. So that's what the CP does. The other loans are loans that have been taken over the years for various improvements of the system. So what is being presented tonight, again, is two items. One is to extend the commercial paper and authorize a liquidity provider servicer, which, by the way, I can't say enough thanks to finance, but the finance department, but we actually went out and conducted, we went out for bids for the service of liquidity provider. We used to have PNC. We went out and sent out this request for bids to 12 different banks. We received 4 bids. Well, actually, we received 3 bids and 1 letter from JP Morgan, turning down the offer. But basically, we received bids from Truist, from PNC, and from Bank of America. And I believe the staff is going to have a recommendation for us tonight as to who the liquidity provider should be. But having said all that, and a lot has been said, if you so authorize us to proceed with these various steps, we'll then go to the City Commission on or about July 22nd. We will then sell bonds the refunding bonds, the ones paying off the commercial paper balance of 30 million, and then exchanging all bonds with higher interest rates with new interest rates. And that transaction is about another 30 million. So it's about 30 million for commercial paper payoff and about 30 to maybe 40 for all bonds being exercised strictly for savings. So it's about a $60 to $70 million loan. Then we will close the financing on or about September. The commercial paper program expires November the 2nd. So we try to give ourselves a bit of breathing room between closing and being able to replace the commercial paper in order to be able to make the calls necessary, not only to banks, but also the various legal representatives of the financial institutions involved. I will stop right here and maybe introduce James. James, if you like to hear if you'd like to say a few things that I may have missed.
Thank you, Noe. Thank
Yes.
you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is James Hernandez, and I'm with the law firm of Greenberg Traurig, and we are the bond counsel to Brownsville PUB. And in your packet, you should have the board resolution, which would authorize the bond transaction that Noe just described, which would essentially do two things. It would authorize the issuance of refunding bonds for to refund the 2013A and 2015 bonds, and also authorize the takeout, the long-term financing of the outstanding commercial paper notes of about $30 million. And if you all have any questions about that, I'm here to answer those.
Thank you, James.
Questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, no questions. Thank you, James.
So just a quick correction. I know we mentioned that we will be taking this to the city commission on July 22nd. We didn't quite make that deadline to submit the item. So we are going to take it to the city commission on August the 5th, if approved by the board tonight, right? And so this is an action item. So I'll read the recommended motion. So BPUB staff recommends approval to execute the resolution relating to the issuance and sale of obligations designated as City of Brownsville, Texas Utilities Systems Revenue Refunding Bond and other matters in connection therewith.
Any discussion or motion?
Can you say again the estimated saving from this action?
It was,
You can go to the next page.
go to the next page. Net present value savings could either be 1.6 million, or if the rates come in 25 basis points under, then the net present savings will be 2,003,000.
That's correct.
So if there are no other questions, I will move to approve the motion as read.
Okay. Any other one? Second? All right, you have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Item passes. Thank you.
Thank you for your trust.
Thank you, Noah.
So August 5th, with the city commission.
Right, that and the item that's up next. We'll be taking those two
Okay.
items to the city commission.
All right, so we'll move on to the next item, which is G5. The item is discussion and possible recommendation on the resolution by the Board of Trustees of the City of Brownsville, Texas Public Utility Board, requesting the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, to approve a supplemental ordinance authorizing certain actions relating to the obligations designated as a City of Brownsville, Texas utility system commercial paper notes, Series A, including extensions and renewals of Series A program, substitution of the credit facilities, the execution and delivery of a reimbursement agreement, bank fee letters and related documents, approving an offering memorandum, and approving certain other matters in connection therein.
That was a mouthful.
Yes.
So, yes, so as mentioned a little earlier, so the current letter of credit with PNC Bank is due to expire November 7th of 2025. So we went ahead and we issued proposals here in May. We sent them out to 38 firms, and we had 4 of the firms responded to the RFP. One of them was non-responsive, right? But so a review committee comprised of staff from BPUB, our financial advisor, Estrada Hinojosa, and bond counsel, Greenberg Traurig, evaluated submitted proposals. The committee is recommending the selection of Bank of America for an irrevocable letter of credit in support of BPUB's commercial paper program. Attached is a resolution requesting the city authorize and provide for the replacement of the existing credit facility related to the commercial paper notes with a replacement credit facility issued by Bank of America, including authorizing a reimbursement agreement, bank fee letter, and related document authorizing the preparation of an offer memorandum in relation to the commercial paper notes. So, as mentioned earlier, Mr. James Hernandez with Bond Counsel with Greenberg Traurig is here. He can provide a quick highlight and answer any of the board's questions.
Thanks, Mike. Again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is James Hernandez. I'm with the law firm of Greenberg Traurig. We're bond counsel of Brownsville PUB. And in your packet, you have another resolution, which essentially does 2 things. One, it will, assuming you approve it, authorize the extension of the existing commercial paper program, which is set to mature in November of this year. It will authorize the extension for up to an additional 10 years. And the second thing it'll do is authorize the substitution of the letter of credit bank. Currently, it's PNC Bank. Their existing letter of credit expires also in November of this year. And so, assuming you approve and city council then approves, the new letter of credit will be for a period of up to 3 years. And but with your action today, that will authorize us to take the resolution to the city commission and request the city commission adopt an ordinance that will essentially supplement the existing commercial paper ordinance to extend the maturity of the CP program for up to 10 years, replace the letter of credit bank, and then execute all the other documents that are required in order for Brownsville PUB to issue commercial paper, which includes what we call an offering memorandum, which is a disclosure document that describes the utility system and the bank. And with that, I'll open the floor to questions if you have any.
Any questions?
So did you get to see all these proposals? Because I noticed there isn't any of the supporting documentation in our package.
Yes, we did. We received copies of the proposals, and I was one of the members of the scoring committee along with staff and the financial advisor.
Okay, and you agree with the ratings and?
Yes, yeah. Overall, the highest scoring proposal came from Bank of America. In fact, they were the credit provider before PNC Bank. And for legal reasons, they had to exit the market temporarily. The legislature passed a bill that required banks and other financial institutions to certify that they didn't have policies that were contrary to the Second Amendment. And B of A had an issue with that for a couple of years. They amended their policies, so they're now back in the market and they rebid. And so they used to be your credit provider for a couple of years. They weren't, and now they're, with your approval, they'd be coming back.
For what it's worth,
No questions?
I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
How was the amount, how did people come up with the $100 million in 2013? How was that derived? And is that a good number going forward for the next 10 years?
I don't exactly know how that amount was arrived at. I think it's basically.
I can share a little history, James.
Your expected capital improvement plan is, and what you think your borrowing needs are going to be, over the next several years. And it's a way to allow you to borrow essentially like a credit card. So you don't have to do, like Noe said, it takes about 90 days to do a new bond deal. And so you don't have to go through all the process, all the steps you would normally go through with a complete bond deal. You have a program in place so you can just draw down what you need when you have construction needs, and then you issue long-term debt to take that out over time. And I think typically Brownsville PUB begins to issue debt when you hit about the $30 million, $40 million mark.
It's just having
But what it-
above the 30,
Yeah,
just in case.
just in case, yeah.
For what it's worth.
It's normally between 60 and 70 million dollars.
Okay.
Once we reach that level, we'll go out and issue long-term debt. So we got that.
Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Chloe.
go ahead, Doug. Go
Yeah,
ahead. Norman.
Yeah, the 100 million back then had to do with the Duke plant in Edinburgh, and then it became Calpine. And I think at that time we needed about 60 million plus to execute that. So that's how it came 100. And then many other issuers like Brunswick PUB, especially in the bigger cities with big CIPs or a big balance sheet because they have various plants, various distribution lines, transmission lines, and so on and so forth, carry this kind of a line of credit or commercial paper program in lieu of the fact that in case of an unforeseen circumstance, you have to tap into either cash or liquidity. And that's how the $100 million came about. At one point, it was 50 million. And then we bumped it to 100 million.
Yeah, I guess the question is, since we're planning to extend it another 10 years, is 100 million adequate?
Yes, it should be adequate.
It's a good question. I think if there was a need for a bigger amount, a larger amount, again, I will make reference to how large your CIP is and how large your balance sheet is. But I think it's easier. You correct me if I'm wrong, James, to be able to amend once you have a program in place than starting a program from scratch.
That's correct. You have the existing program in place, and we go through a process similar to what we're doing tonight, where you'd have a supplemental ordinance that would authorize the increase in the amount from 100 to 150. Now, we'd have to get the bank to agree to increase their letter of credit to match that. But we follow a similar process to what we're doing tonight.
And so, you know, if you were to say tonight, well, no, let's go to 150, let's go to 200 million. It's not that easy. What we try to do is keep you within a certain lane so that we're able to keep our credit ratings. So the rating agencies are going to give us a grade for our letter of credit and also for the debt that is currently outstanding. So typically, because of your good ratings, we try to have a very specific plan. You know, here's our CIP and here's our balance sheet. And I think as we go on with determining what we believe is going to be the capital plan for the next 3 to 5 years or so, and knowing how big that plan is going to be, we can come back to you with a recommendation one way or the other, and certainly welcome you to give us your feedback too. So once we know in a more definitive fashion what that CIP is going to be.
Understood. Thank you, Noe. Any
Yes, sir.
additional questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
But I was just gonna ask how to make the motion.
Well, I think okay.
So yes, this is an action item. BPUB staff recommends approval to execute the resolution requesting the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas to approve a supplemental ordinance authorizing certain actions related to obligations designated as City of Brownsville, Texas Utility Systems Commercial Paper Notes, Series A, including extension and renewal of Series A program, substitution of the credit facility to the Bank of America, the execution and delivery of a reimbursement agreement, bank fee letter and related documents, approving an offering memorandum, and approving certain other matters in connection therewith.
All right. Any additional discussion or motion?
So I'm going to move to approve and call out Mike for the fact that his motion was much shorter than the agenda item. But anyways, yes, I'll move to approve.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
All righty, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6, consideration and possible action to approve bid award for the annual supply of general inventory stock. Diana Solitaire.
Hi. Diane Solitaire, Purchasing and Materials Manager. This item, the Purchasing Department opened bids on April 17th for the annual supply of general stock. The invitation to bid was advertised in the Brownsville Herald posted on the PUB webpage and emailed to 32 vendors with 11 vendors responding. Casting of lots is required for 3 items. So the first item is G 0370-01 to Annixter or Texas Meter and Device.
Texas Meter and Device.
The second, G 0370-02 to Annixter or Texas Meter and Device.
Texas Meter and Device.
And the third one is G 0370-03 Annixter or Texas Meter and Device. Okay. PUB staff recommends approval of bid award for the annual supply of general inventory stock to the following low bidders meeting specifications. Annixter in the amount of $97,725.08. CC Distributors in the amount of $94,625.44. Express Export in the amount of $5,880. Gateway Printing in the amount of $15,847.68. KBS Electric in the amount of $8,400. Triple S Steel doing business as Alamo Iron Works in the amount of $145,914.16. VWR International in the amount of $13,429.52. Texas Meter in the amount of $18,970.50. And casting of lots in the amount of $4,815 for a grand total amount of $405,607.38.
Okay, do you have a discussion or motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, one more item here. Number 7, discussion and possible action regarding the selection of an option from Integrated Resource Plan. Lina Alvarez.
Good afternoon again. In summary, we presented the information for the integrated resource plan, the results, and then the recommendation from PubCap during the workshop. At this time, the board of directors can consider selecting an option for the integrated resource plan.
All right, we reviewed the information in the workshop earlier. There was essentially 3 options. Option 1, 2, and 3. The recommendation from PubCap was option 1, which was the balanced, if I remember correctly, balanced configuration. Do I have any discussion, additional discussion, or motion?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt option 1. And separate from the motion, I would still like to see the other information. But I think we can make a decision on it right now.
All right, we have a motion, a second.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Martin. We have a second. So motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. So option 1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll be recessing for a closed meeting. Let me just read this here. Recess to close meeting to consider matters pursuant to Texas Governmental Code, Chapter 551. At this time, the items on the agenda designated for closed meeting will be considered. If there is an approved motion to go into closed meeting, and listeners will be placed on hold until the board meeting returns to open meeting. Item 1, meeting with the board legal counsel for advice about contemplated impending court and administrative litigation and on matters in which the duty of the attorney under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct conflicts with chapters 551, section 551.071, included but not limited to the following. A, reports of local and special counsel, including regarding potential impending litigation involving BPUB. B, updates on contract negotiations related to large-scale business development. C, exposure to effects of tariffs. Item 2, presentation, discussion, and possible recommendation of information upon pricing of the purchase power generation and fuel and their impacts on the fuel purchase energy and marketing charge, section 551.086. Item 3, consideration and possible action on a natural gas agreement with Tenaska Marketing Ventures for the Silos Ray Power Plant and authorizing the general manager and chief executive officer to negotiate and execute a definitive contract, section 551.086. Item 4, review and consider potential electric service agreements with the retail customer within a duly certified electric service area under 112-17B, Brownsville Code of Ordinance, authorizing the general manager and CEO to finalize negotiations on the same. Sections 551.071 and section 551.086. Last item, number 5, consideration and possible action to approve the evaluation of the Director of Internal Audit and the Audit Committee for 23 through 24 and 24 and 25, section 551.074. Do I have a motion to convene in closed?
Make a motion to convene.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. See you in a few minutes. Okay, so we're back out of closed and the time is 8:26. Thank you, everybody, for waiting. And we'll go ahead and continue the process here for item I, consideration and action on closed meeting items. On number 1, consider action, possible action on items discussed in closed. 1A.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Or you
Paul
wanna-
Gonzalez, Chief
Go ahead.
Legal Officer and General Counsel. Consideration and possible resolution authorizing the establishment by contract of rates, terms, and conditions for an electric customer in a duly certificated electric service area. BPUB staff have completed negotiations with Lindy Incorporated for the provision of retail service to the facility currently under construction within an industrial park within an area duly certificated to both BPUB and AEP Texas. As such, this additional retail load is subject to direct competition, and the board has authority under section 102-17B of the Code of Ordinances to enter into an agreement. A resolution has been drafted for the board to take this action if it is deemed appropriate to do so. And a copy of the resolution is enclosed with your packet. We recommend approval of the resolution as presented.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Everyone in agreement or?
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. And item,
Yes, next item. that requires action following the closed meeting would be item 1B, consideration of possible action to approve the evaluation of the Director of Internal Audit by the Audit Committee for 2023 through 2024 and 2025. Is there a motion to approve and finalize the evaluation by the Audit Committee as discussed in closed?
I'll move to approve.
All right, okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Yes, and then one more action item, Mr. Chair. This would be for item 3 from closed. Consideration and possible action on a natural gas agreement with Tenaska Marketing Ventures for the Silas Ray Power Plant and authorizing the general manager and chief executive officer to negotiate and execute a definitive contract. Staff recommendation, BPUB staff recommends board approval to authorize the general manager and chief executive officer to complete negotiations and execute a contract with Silas Ray Natural Gas Supply for a 3-year term and under other terms presented. Is there a motion to approve the staff recommendation?
Motion?
Okay, there's a motion
I'll second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Juan. I think that's it as far as actions.
Yes.
Moving on to the last item, J, consideration and action for future agenda items. Is there any future agenda items proposed?
A Resaca workshop
Okay,
for the full board.
yeah, we'll discuss that. Anything else? No? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everybody.
There we go.
And happy birthday, Mayor.